Oral questions, question orale, the Honourable Leader of the Official Opposition.
Le Président.
The Liberal Speaker resigned after the massive shame and embarrassment of having recognized a Nazi in the House of Commons. Our international reputation, though, is in the Prime Minister's hands. Diplomatic and intelligence services could have vetted the list of guests, and in fact, that vetting is the Prime Minister's responsibility. Today, the Prime Minister needs to take responsibility in order to reverse the massive damage done to our international reputation. Will he rise in this place and apologize for this massive and shameful failure? The Honourable House Leader. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. First, it is important to highlight that the Speaker of the House of Commons is independent and elected by all members of this House. I thank the Speaker for taking responsibility for his actions. As I said yesterday, and as he repeated just a few moments ago, it was his decision. He accepts responsibility for it, and I think that was the honourable and the right thing to do. The Honourable Opposition Leader. Yes, but the Prime Minister's intelligence and protocol services had the right to ask for lists of all those who would be recognized. What's more, the responsibility to defend Canada's reputation, that is the Prime Minister's responsibility. We are currently experiencing the worst blow to our reputation in all of our history. So where's the Prime Minister? Where's he hiding? Why won't he rise in the House of Commons to defend Canadians' reputation?
I'm going to remind the honourable members whether we can, we cannot say whether someone is here or not in the chamber. We're on that line very closely. The Honourable House Leader for the government.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The opposition leader knows full well the Speaker of the House resigned today. He accepted responsibility for the decision that he made on his own. He alone decided to invite and recognize that individual. As all members of this House know full well, it was shameful for us as members. It was shameful for Canadians. He took responsibility, and that was the honourable decision.
Mr. Speaker, the Liberal Speaker has taken the fall for this massive international shame and embarrassment. But the Prime Minister's protocol and intelligence units had the right to ask for the list of all those who would be present and recognized around a war leader from a country that is trying to defend its freedom from not only an invasion, but a propaganda war. The Prime Minister did not carry out that responsibility, and now our nation's reputation is in tatters. Will he stand up and apologize to Canadians, to the Jewish community, to the Ukrainian people, and to the entire world for this mess that he helped create?
The Honourable Government House Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I feel that I have to remind the Leader of the Opposition this, although he knows it very well himself, that the Speaker of the House of Commons is independent. He is voted upon by all of the members of Parliament, and he is the Speaker of all parliamentarians. Mr. Speaker, we know, and the Leader opposite knows, that this was the decision solely of the Speaker of the House of Commons. He chose to invite this individual. He chose to recognize him without informing the government or the Ukrainian delegation. This was highly embarrassing. I accept his resignation, and I'm glad that he did it.
The Honourable Leader of the Official Opposition.
The Minister says he's not responsible for our diplomatic reputation, even though that is precisely the job of the head of government. Like when he says he's not responsible for the inflationary spending that led prices and interest rates to rise faster than at any time in history. He's not responsible for housing costs doubling after he promised to lower them. He's not responsible for dressing up in racist costumes so many times he can't remember. That's all Canadians that needed to learn a lesson from his personal conduct. And now he says he's not responsible to vet the very people that come into contact with a visiting head of state. Is it that he's not responsible or that he's irresponsible?
The Honourable Government House Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I would posit that the Leader of the Opposition is being very irresponsible right now in his accusations, when in fact he knows the truth, and it's why every party in this House has asked for the resignation, which has now been received by the Speaker of the House, because it was his decision and his decision alone to invite this individual and to recognize him in this chamber. The Leader of the Opposition knows this. He is irresponsibly politicizing this issue. This is something that has brought shame and embarrassment to all of Parliament and indeed all of Canadians, and the Speaker did the honourable thing in resigning. Thank you.
The Honourable Leader of the Official Opposition.
Well, I am responsible enough to show up for work, Mr. Speaker. You know, I mean this literally. Has there ever been a greater diplomatic embarrassment in the history of our country? I mean it literally. In coffee shops and gyms and businesses and boardrooms around the world, people are reading about this massive and shameful disgrace that unfolded under the watch of a Liberal Speaker and a Liberal Prime Minister. And yet, he can't even show up for work. Where is he, and why is he hiding under a rock today?
I'm just going to stand here for a few minutes and see what goes on.
You should know. You should know.
Are we ready? Okay. Underlining whether someone is here or not is not allowed by the rules of this House. The Honourable Government House Leader, if she wants to answer it. I'll give her the option.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This is precisely why the Speaker of the House announced his resignation, because he took responsibility for his actions that have hurt parliamentarians and have hurt all Canadians and indeed Canada's reputation. That is why every party in this House called for his resignation. But I do find it ironic, Mr. Speaker, that we have barely heard a word of support for Ukraine from the Leader of the Opposition until he sees a political wedge issue and tries to politicize this issue.
Order! A long day, looks like. Order! L'honorable député.
The Honourable Member for Belleuil-Chambly. Mr. Speaker, a question more about substance than style. The official opposition leader and I agree on something which is significant. The Prime Minister is not responsible for the mistake, but he is responsible for fixing it. He is head of state. It's his responsibility. So, does the Prime Minister intend to officially apologize on behalf of Canada and unfortunately still on behalf of Quebec? Does he intend to apologize to all those who suffered as a result of the dramatic and serious event which took place in this place? The Honourable Government House Leader. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I thank my colleague for his question. The Speaker already apologized for the decision that he made. It was a shameful decision for all of us as members and for all Canadians. It was important that he take responsibility for his actions and decisions. Everyone in this House called for his resignation. He did so, and that was the honorable choice. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The honourable member for Belleuil-Chambly. After 6 questions, it's hard to believe that the government House leader hasn't yet understood that the responsibility of the Prime Minister and the responsibility of the House are not one and the same. The Prime Minister needs to assume his responsibilities as head of state, as a head of government. So he needs to apologize to the Jewish community in Quebec, in Canada, and around the world. He needs to apologize to all parliamentarians and to all Canadians, and he must specifically apologize to President Zelensky because this event made him target of Russian propaganda. The Honourable Government House Leader. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As I said yesterday, I am a Canadian of Jewish origin. I am the descendant of a Holocaust survivor. This incident hurt me personally, as it hurt all members of this House and all Canadians. The incident also hurt President Zelensky. The Speaker of the House apologized and took responsibility for his decision, which was shameful and painful for us all. He did the responsible thing by resigning. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The honourable member for Burnaby South. Yesterday, it was manufacturers' turn to be summoned by the Innovation Minister. The minister knows full well that they have jacked up prices because he's only asking them to stabilize prices. After the meeting, the minister said that inaction is not an option, except that that is exactly what he's been doing for the past 2 years. Will the minister make a commitment to Canadian families? Will he commit to them that their Thanksgiving meal will cost less this year than it did last year? The Honourable Innovation Minister. Mr. Speaker, I thank my colleague for the question. I'm happy to hear that he also has read that we've said that inaction is not an option. That is why we summoned major grocers in Canada to ask them to stabilize prices in Canada. And I expressed to them the frustration of 40 million Canadians. I told them that the #1 issue that matters to Canadians is the cost of living, affordability, and grocery prices. That's why, Mr. Speaker, we tabled Bill C-56, which will address competition because we want more competition in Canada, and I hope the colleague will support that bill so that we can move forward. Liberal inaction is too costly.
We have in Halifax a very serious situation. People currently living in a campground fear they'll be homeless when it closes for the season because there's simply nowhere else for them to go. These people have worked hard, they've got jobs, some live in the campground, some work there, but there's simply no other housing for them to rent in the surrounding area. They don't have months to wait for the government to approve new housing. They'll be homeless in weeks. This is the result of a Prime Minister who could have and should have built more affordable housing, but didn't. What will the Prime Minister tell them when they're homeless in a few weeks?
The Honourable Minister of Housing.
Mr. Speaker, I agree with my honourable colleague the need to continue to invest in affordable housing, including in the city of Halifax, including in my home province of Nova Scotia. I point out to the honourable member right now, as we speak, the City Council in Halifax is actually debating a motion to change the way that they permit homes to be built as a result of the Housing Accelerator Fund that's going to yield more homes for people who live in the city of Halifax. In addition to changing the way cities build homes, we're putting incentives on the table to get more homes built, and we're going to work with jurisdictions that have local authority to figure out how we can continue to increase the affordable housing stock as we have been for the last number of years. I'm going to be pleased to work with my honourable colleague to advance solutions for some of the most vulnerable people in Canada.
Member for Thornhill.
The Speaker of the House took the fall, and the Prime Minister continues to blame everyone else. A full-blown international embarrassment for our country, for our allies, and for everything this nation did to defeat the Nazis. An actual Nazi invited to the House of Commons, welcomed, and celebrated as a hero. and a government that vetted everyone here. The PM has called Canadian citizens Nazis. Will he muster the courage and stand up on his feet today and take responsibility?
The Honourable Government House Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I think we all feel the deep embarrassment and shame of what happened on Friday. Had anyone in this House known what the Speaker was going to do ahead of time and who this person was, I am certain that not a single person would have stood in this House of Commons. But the fact of the matter is, and my Conservative colleagues know this, that neither the Prime Minister nor the government nor the Ukrainian delegation or any parliamentarian in this place knew ahead of time. It was the Speaker's decision. He's taken responsibility and he has resigned. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Member for Thornhill.
The minister who is now whispering was louder when she also painted Canadians as Nazis, and she can't bring herself to apologize for an actual Nazi this government vetted. Worse even, she tried to strike it from the historical record of this House as if it never happened. A descendant of Holocaust survivors distorting the Holocaust. You should be ashamed of yourself. I don't know how many...
Just a reminder for all questions and comments to be through the chair. The Honourable Member for Thornhill, you have about 5 seconds left there.
How many times I'm going to have to ask this Prime Minister for an apology that he has slandered, dishonored, and embarrassed Holocaust survivors, but I think 2 times is too many.
Here, here.
The Honourable Government House Leader.
Mr. Speaker, while the member opposite tries to personally attack me, I will actually stay focused on the facts. And the fact of the matter is, and she knows this as well as every other member in this House, is that it was the Speaker who decided to invite this individual. It was the Speaker who acknowledged that he was going to acknowledge him in the chamber. No one in this chamber knew ahead of time of who he was. The Speaker has taken full responsibility for this. He has resigned. It was the right thing to do. It was the honorable thing to do, and it is something that had to be done.
The Honourable Member for Charleswood, St. James, Assiniboia, Headingley.
Global Affairs, the Privy Council, the Diplomatic Protocol Office, Parliamentary Protective Services, and the RCMP. What do they all have in common? They all have massive resources for vetting visitors to this place. The Prime Minister just threw the Speaker under the bus, but the truth is the buck stops with him. Allowing a Nazi to be honored in this chamber has embarrassed Canada on the international stage. Shame on him for bringing shame on this chamber. Will the Prime Minister finally take responsibility, do the right thing, and apologize?
The Honourable Government House Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I will remind my Conservative colleagues, because they seem to have forgotten, that they also called on the Speaker's resignation this morning because they recognized that it was actually the Speaker who did this on his own. Instead of trying to cast blame where no blame should be cast, the Speaker has taken responsibility for his actions. He has resigned. It was the honorable thing to do. It was the right thing to do after a moment in our history on Friday that was deeply embarrassing, deeply shameful for Canadians, and that has hurt all of us as parliamentarians and Canadians. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Charleswood, St. James, Assiniboia, Headingley.
Mr. Speaker, yesterday the Prime Minister and that member tried to bury this sordid affair with a motion to strike history from the record. For the sake of the 6 million Jews who perished at the hands of the Nazis, Conservatives said no. This affair has resulted in a diplomatic disaster for Canada and gives the Russian government and their illegal invasion a propaganda win. When will the PM stop trying to erase history, take responsibility for once, and apologize?
The Honourable Government House Leader.
Took responsibility for his actions and he apologized. Thank you.
L'Honourable député de Charlebourg, Haute-Saint-Charles.
The Honourable Member for Charlebourg, Haute-Saint-Charles. Mr. Speaker, I'll share with you a few headlines in media around the world since Friday's event. Deeply hurtful. A Nazi veteran was invited to the Canadian Parliament. Scandal in Canada. Former Nazi fighter in Canadian Parliament. Canada is the laughingstock of the world, the whole world. Will the Prime Minister stand up and apologize, or will he keep hiding? The Honourable Government House Leader. Every member of this House feels that the House Speaker's choice was unforgivable, unacceptable, and shameful to all Canadians. That's why the House Speaker apologized, took responsibility, and resigned. The Honourable Member for Charlebourg-Haute-Saint-Charles. There's something the government doesn't seem to understand, Mr. Speaker, and that's that they have a responsibility. In 2015, legislative amendments were made so that the Parliamentary Protective Service is tasked with vetting visitors, for example, during the visit of foreign presidents. The Prime Minister was unable to maintain Canada's diplomatic security, so can he stand up in this House as soon as possible to apologize? The Honourable Government House Leader. As I stated yesterday many times, the Parliamentary Protection Service followed all security protocols. The House Speaker was the one who was responsible for this decision to invite and recognize that individual. He apologized, he took responsibility, and he resigned. The Honourable Member for Terrebonne. Mr. Speaker, a wave of bankruptcies awaits our small and medium enterprises if the federal government does not wake up. That's the warning that was issued on the Hill today by the Canadian Federation of Independent Business. The government is giving them 18 days to obtain bank loans, but that won't save SMEs that are up to their necks in debt. They have been struggling to repay their emergency account loans for the past 3 years. Unfortunately, what awaits them is bankruptcy. When will the government finally open a direct channel of communication with struggling businesses in order to offer them appropriate payment deferral options? The Honourable Employment Minister. I thank my honourable colleague for her question. About 1 million businesses were able to stay open thanks to this government's measures. We know that there has been rising inflation, there have been supply chain issues, and also the situation in Ukraine. Those are all factors which have been difficult for businesses in Canada. But we will be able to support them to keep their businesses in good standing. We support people in other ways as well, Mr. Speaker. The Canada Child Benefit, the Canada Workers Benefit. We are here for Quebec's businesses, and we will continue to be there for them. The Honourable Member for Terrebonne. Mr. Speaker, our small businesses are not asking for charity. They simply want to avoid bankruptcy while paying back what they owe. The government could sign deferred payment agreements with companies that are struggling without losing any subsidies. That way, the government could avoid closures, avoid job losses, and get back what it is owed instead of losing all of that due to a wave of bankruptcies. When will the government finally realize that being flexible with SMEs is the only fair and responsible way out of this crisis? The Honourable Minister. Mr. Speaker, let us be clear and let us look at the facts. We are here to support businesses. We supported them throughout the pandemic. Now we're on the other end of the pandemic, and we've been very clear about what we will do to help businesses which used CEBA. We are there for them, for entrepreneurs, to support them. We supported entrepreneurs, and we will continue to support them. The Honourable Member for Abitibi-Témiscamingue. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, nearly 2,000 SMEs in Quebec have already declared bankruptcy in the past year, and according to the Canadian Federation of Independent Business, this is just the start. 1 in 5 businesses is contemplating closing in the next year. The elephant in the room, Mr. Speaker, is that 60% of bankruptcies in Canada are in Quebec, because small business is Quebec's economic model. We're going to have to pay for our entrepreneurial spirit and our support for local entrepreneurs if the government does not show some flexibility. When will the government wake up and stop pushing our SMEs into bankruptcy. The Honourable Employment Minister. Mr. Speaker, before I was in politics, I was an entrepreneur. I know what it's like to have to pay business bills, to make sure that you have enough money to pay your employees. I have a lot of empathy for Quebec's businesses. That's why our government was very clear about its plan to help those repaying CBUT loans. People have up to 3 years to repay the loan, Mr. Speaker. We support businesses and we support entrepreneurs. That's our plan, and we will continue on this same track.
That a member of the Nazi Waffen SS was even invited to attend an event in the House of Commons is appalling. That he was honored during the address of the Ukrainian president is an inexcusable failure for this Liberal government. The Waffen SS committed numerous atrocities in Poland, and members of the Polish government have now demanded an apology for this international embarrassment. This has become a diplomatic disaster requiring immediate action from the Prime Minister. So will he finally take responsibility, do the right thing, and apologize?
The Honourable Government House Leader.
Mr. Speaker, as the member opposite knows full well, it was the Speaker of the House who invited this individual, who chose to recognize him without informing not a single member in this House, the government, the Prime Minister, or the Ukrainian delegation. This has caused enormous hurt to communities across this country, including Polish Canadians. And for that, the Speaker has apologized. He has resigned. That was the right thing to do. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Chilliwack Hope.
Prime Minister and his office, who organized President Zelensky's visit down to the most minute detail. Every moment of the visit was planned, and every guest in this House should have been vetted or was vetted by the Prime Minister's office. But somehow, a member of the Nazi Waffen SS was not only allowed to attend, but was celebrated on the floor of this House. The Prime Minister's office organized the entire event. The Prime Minister's office vetted the entire guest list. So when will he finally take responsibility, come out of hiding, and apologize?
The Honourable Government House Leader.
Mr. Speaker, my Conservative colleague opposite continues to spread false information. We know the Speaker has admitted it, he has apologized, and he has resigned because it was he and he alone that invited this individual and recognized him. The guest list was vetted by the Parliamentary Protective Service, who followed all security protocol. The member opposite knows that the Speaker has a speaker gallery to which he invited this individual. No one in this chamber knew ahead of time. Thank you.
L'honorable député de Mégantic-L'Érable.
The Honourable Member for Mégantic-L'Érable. The Liberal Prime Minister has once again embarrassed all Canadians, and there is outrage around the world. His lack of judgment, his negligence, or simply his incompetence are once again making the news worldwide. In fact, Le Monde, a French newspaper, reported in the midst of Zelensky's visit to Canada, there was a misguided tribute to a former soldier in a Nazi division. A headline in the Czech Republic, more fuel for the Russians' fire. In Canada, a Nazi veteran was applauded in front of Zelensky. Will the Prime Minister, for once, take responsibility and apologize for hurting Canadians everywhere around the world? The Honourable Government House Leader. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Today, all members of this House called for the House Speaker's resignation. We all realized that it was his decision which led to the incident on Friday, which was shameful for us as members of Parliament, shameful for us as Canadians, and just shameful on the whole. So, Mr. Speaker, once again, I call on my Conservative colleagues to depoliticize this issue and to stick to the facts.
The Honourable Member for Mégantic-L'Érable. In Finland, it was said the Canadian Parliament made an embarrassing mistake during the Ukrainian president's visit. The guest of honour had served in Nazi Germany. In the Netherlands, it says a standing ovation for a former SS office in Canada's House of Commons. Washington Post, they've said that a Nazi was honoured in Parliament. The news has circled the globe, and the Liberal Prime Minister who invited President Zelensky to address the House, he is solely and ultimately responsible for this embarrassment and the damage it has done to the Ukrainian people and to Canada's reputation? When will the Prime Minister come out of hiding and apologize? The Honourable House Leader. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I've already answered this question. The Conservative members know the facts. I would invite them once again to remain on the facts and not say things that are incorrect. Thank you.
Honourable Member for Port Moody Coquitlam.
Mr. Speaker, people are seeing a rising tide of organized hate and hate-related violence. This week, a whites-only Mums and Tots poster was put up at a bus stop in my community. The residents of Port Moody, Coquitlam, Port Coquitlam, and Morin-Belcarra are outraged. They want the government to take stronger action against hate in their communities, yet the Liberals are nowhere to be found. Will the government listen to Canadians and take concrete action to combat all forms of hate, discrimination, racism, and violence?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
We too are outraged by what we've recently learned, and we take the issue of hate, discrimination in all forms extremely seriously. We are going to continue to work with local communities on how best to take these concrete action, but make no mistake, Mr. Speaker, we as a government feel that hate has no place in this country, and we will do everything we can to ensure that communities remain safe.
The Honourable Member for Edmonton Strathcona.
Mr. Speaker, Danielle Smith and her Conservative government are threatening to take Albertans out of the Canadian Pension Plan. This is a page that directly comes from the leader of the Conservative Party when he said he would cut the CPP. People need to know that their futures are secure, and of course, we have heard nothing from the Conservative leader of the opposition. Canadians don't want Conservatives risking their pensions. This isn't Smith's money. This isn't the Conservatives' money. This is Canadians' money. Will the Prime Minister do everything he can to protect Albertans and Canadians' pensions from this absurd plan?
The Honourable Minister of Employment.
Mr. Speaker, let me and our government be very clear. Canadians, Albertans value the Canada Pension Plan. Every single Edmontonian, every single Albertan that I have spoken to on this issue, including email in my inbox this very day, Mr. Speaker, is about the government of Alberta keeping their hands off of Canadian pensions, making sure it stays under the management of Canada, Mr. Speaker. People have paid into the Canada Pension Plan. They wanted to be there in their retirement. We will do everything in our power to keep the pensions in the hands of Canadians and in the CPP.
The Honourable Member for Northwest Territories.
Mr. Speaker, this year marked Canada's worst wildfire season on record, especially in the Northwest Territories, with 3 of our 4 largest communities and nearly 70% of our population evacuated. So $28 million recently announced for the NMT by the Government of Canada is very much appreciated. But along with real costs of fighting the fires, the evacuation resulted in many businesses that had to close down for weeks. Can the Minister of Northern Affairs please give an update on our government's plan to support businesses in the Northwest Territories as they get back up and running again after the evacuations? Good question. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Minister of Northern Affairs.
First of all, I'd like to thank the member for his incredible work in helping his constituents during an unprecedented wildfire season in Northwest Territories. As the member mentioned, our government has been there during the worst of the fires and will continue to be there as the communities continue to bounce back from the wildfires. As Northerners know, small businesses are the backbone of the economy, and I can guarantee the member for Northwest Territories that more support is on its way.
Hear, hear. The Honourable Member for South Surrey White Rock.
Global Affairs, the Privy Council, the Diplomatic Protocol Office, the RCMP, what do they all have in common? One, they have massive resources to vet visitors in this place. Two, they all report to the Prime Minister. The Prime Minister is trying to shift the blame to the Liberal Speaker, but it's him and him alone that bears the responsibility of a successful state visit. The Prime Minister is in Ottawa today. Will he take responsibility today for his international diplomatic disaster and apologize to Canadians and our allies?
I just want to make a quick comment that the Speaker is just a Speaker. We're not belonging to any party when we're in this position. So I would just, I would just, because I'd rather not call it out of order. The honourable member, the honourable Government House Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This question has been answered several times. The member knows that what she is alleging is not true. The truth of the matter is it was the Speaker who took these actions. It's why he took responsibility. It's why he resigned. And in fact, it's why every member in this House asked for his resignation. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Councillor White-Rock.
Government House Leader lost all credibility when she moved to whitewash the official record and asked all of us to pretend that this diplomatic disaster never happened. It did happen. The whole world saw it. It happened under this Prime Minister's watch, and he's refusing to take responsibility. Again, he is in Ottawa today. Will he do the honourable thing, the right thing, stand in his place and apologize?
The Honourable Government House Leader.
Mr. Speaker, the member opposite would know that when egregious acts happen in this place, that they are sometimes struck from the record. In fact, when the member from St. Albert read some very inappropriate remarks into the record, they were struck from the record. Mr. Speaker, that is something that we took seriously. The House decided not to do this. Again, had members in this House been aware of what they were doing at that time, I feel very confident no one would have stood and applauded this individual.
Honourable member for Wellington Halton Hills.
Mr. Speaker, it's not just the reputation of Parliament that has been sullied, it's the reputation of this country on the world stage. This isn't just a parliamentary issue, it's a full-blown diplomatic one. Ian Bremmer of the Eurasia Group said yesterday, this was the worst week for Canadian diplomacy in I can't remember how long. Diplomacy is the responsibility of the Government of Canada. So when will the Prime Minister take responsibility for this diplomatic disaster?
The Honourable Government House Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I don't think any member in this House disagrees at how horrific what happened on Friday was. In fact, that's why every single member in this place called for the resignation of the Speaker, because he brought not only shame and embarrassment to this Parliament, but indeed to all Canadians, as I have said several times in this House. That is why he has apologized. It is why he has resigned. And we must now move forward, but we recognize the hurt that this has caused to communities across this country as well as around the world. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Wellington Halton Hills.
Mr. Speaker, the Speaker bears responsibility, but so too does the Prime Minister. It was the Prime Minister in his office that made a decision on short notice to request a joint address for President Zelensky on the floor of this House. That decision came with consequences. That decision came with responsibilities, some of which we are witnessing around the world today. So again, when will the Prime Minister, for once, take some responsibility for this diplomatic disaster?
The Honourable Government House Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I actually want to acknowledge my honourable colleague because he's the first and only Conservative MP that has actually acknowledged that this was the responsibility of the Speaker, which is why the Speaker took responsibility and it's why he resigned. And so I want to thank him for at least sticking to the facts, which we haven't heard from most of our Conservative colleagues. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Avignon-La-Métis, Matane, Matapédia. Mr. Speaker, last week, during the Climate Ambition Summit, we learned of Canada's intention to double oil production in Newfoundland by 2030. Double oil production. The Conservatives even applauded the government yesterday on this subject. Hooray for Canada, a major oil-producing country, as the Minister of the Environment would say. Mr. Speaker, in the fight against climate change, does the Minister of the Environment think it's good news when the Conservatives applaud him? The Honourable Minister of the Environment. Mr. Speaker. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I thank my colleague for her question. Last week, there were 2 pieces of good news. There are 2 new Canadian sites that will be added to UNESCO's World Heritage Sites, 2 sites. That might not be a good news for the Bloc Québécois. One of them would have been an oil drilling site if it hadn't been for the hard work of environmentalists, Indigenous people, and the government of Quebec. So Anticosti is now a UNESCO World Heritage Site. The Honourable Member for Avignon-Lamatis, Matane-Matapédia. Mr. Speaker, 2023 is on track to be the hottest year on record. British Columbia, Alberta, the Northwest Territories, Nova Scotia, and Quebec have suffered forest fires on a dramatic, unprecedented scale. Biodiversity is threatened. Oceans are warming to record levels. Yet the Liberal Conservative coalition applauds increased drilling in the Atlantic. Listening to them applaud, you'd think we didn't need to reduce our dependence on oil, we needed to increase production. What will it take for them to realize that they are playing a very dangerous game for humanity? The Honourable Minister of the Environment and Climate Change. Mr. Speaker, if the Bloc was as enthusiastic about working with us to fight climate change, things would go even better. But, Mr. Speaker, Canada is the only major oil-producing country to be invited to the Climate Ambition Summit last week. Why? Because we have the most ambitious goals to reduce methane emissions, because we are the only G20 country to have eliminated subsidies for fossil fuels. No other G20 country did it. We did it 2 years earlier than expected, and the Prime Minister said we would cap emissions from oil and gas. We are the only country in the world, Mr. Speaker, to have made that commitment.
The Honourable Member for Selkirk, Interlake, Eastman.
These Liberals have embarrassed Canada, insulted the Jewish community, undermined our Ukrainian allies, and disrespected our veterans. And this Prime Minister refuses to accept any responsibility. He's either willfully or ignorantly discarded his duty to protect President Zelensky from this international disaster. Because of his negligence, Liberals have helped fuel Russia's propaganda machine against Ukraine. So will the Prime Minister finally accept responsibility, stand in this House, and apologize to all Canadians and to our Ukrainian allies?
The Honourable Government House Leader.
Speaker, as my honourable colleague knows, the decision to invite and acknowledge this individual was the Speaker's and the Speaker's alone. For that, he has apologized. For that, he has resigned. Mr. Speaker, this is something that has brought shame and embarrassment to all of us as parliamentarians, indeed to all Canadians. It has hurt Canadian communities across this country, Jewish Canadians, Ukrainian communities, any community that was impacted by the Holocaust. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Kildonan, St. Paul.
Here on Friday, Parliament stood and honoured a Nazi. It is unbelievable that this happened, and the Canadian people deserve to be represented with dignity in this House and on the world stage, and that was taken away from them. The Liberals have so profoundly failed Canadians. This is beyond shameful and embarrassing, and it will never be forgotten. Now the Speaker has resigned, but the Prime Minister bears responsibility. He is in charge. This happened under his watch. Will he finally do the right thing and apologize to Canadians?
The Honourable Government House Leader.
I think we all agree with my honourable colleague that we wish this had never happened, because it did bring shame and embarrassment to every single member of this House, as well as every single Canadian. Unfortunately, it was the Speaker and the Speaker alone who chose to invite this individual and acknowledge this individual in the gallery, unbeknownst to any member of Parliament in here, which is why every single member present stood and applauded, because they were led to believe this individual was someone who he wasn't. We know that that was not the case. The Speaker has taken responsibility and he has resigned.
Kildonan, St. Paul.
There is no more time for Liberal excuses, Mr. Speaker, and more deflections. Canadians deserve far better than that. Friday was supposed to be a day where Canadians and Ukrainians were able to come together and stand against Putin's brutal regime and their illegal, brutal, deadly invasion of Ukraine. The president of Ukraine was in Parliament. The world's eyes were on Canada, but due to Liberal negligence and incompetence, a Nazi was honored at that time, Mr. Speaker. Canada has been profoundly embarrassed, and there will be lasting international consequences. The Prime Minister cannot escape his responsibility to this House and to Canadians. The buck stops with him, Mr. Speaker. Will he be apologizing to Canada and our world allies, yes or no?
The Honourable Government House Leader.
Again, I would ask my honourable colleagues to please stick to the facts. They all know that this was the decision of the Speaker of the House of Commons to both invite this individual and recognize him without informing a single member of Parliament, the Prime Minister, the government, or the Ukrainian delegation. We all feel completely embarrassed and shamed by this fact. And for this, the Speaker has not only apologized, he has resigned. That was the right thing for him to do after a very horrific incident for all of us.
The Honourable Member for Laval-Les-Îles. Mr. Speaker, many people in my riding of Laval-Les-Îles have shared with me their concerns about the rising cost of living in terms of food prices and housing costs. Could the Minister of Innovation, Science and Industry please inform the House of the steps the government is taking to make life more affordable for Canadians? Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Honourable Minister of Innovation. Mr. Speaker, I'd first like to thank the member for Laval-Les-Îles for his work. In fact, Mr. Speaker, we know that the people of Laval are focused on the work. We've taken concrete action to help people at a time when the cost of food is the #1 issue. Mr. Speaker, this morning I met with major manufacturers to tell them 3 things. First, to express the frustration people are feeling throughout the country, including the people of Laval, saying that the cost of groceries is the #1 issue. Number 2, I asked them to be a part of the solution because we all have a role to play to help Canadians during a difficult time. Mr. Speaker, I can assure people that with the member of Laval-Les-Îles, we will continue to fight. The Honourable Member for Edmonton Millwoods.
Mr. Speaker, I was honoured to introduce the National Holocaust Monument Bill in this House, which received unanimous support from all parties. This monument helps Canadians learn more about the horrors of the Holocaust. But never did I imagine that in this same House of Commons, a Nazi would be invited and honoured in this place. Mr. Speaker, when will the Prime Minister stand up, take responsibility for this massive insult, and apologize to Canadians?
The Honourable Government House Leader.
You know, my family walked into Auschwitz, and only my grandfather and great-uncle walked out. Never in a million years would I have imagined that the Speaker of the House of Commons would invite someone who fought for the Nazis to this place and to recognize him in front of everyone and to ask us all to stand. We all placed our trust in the Speaker. It was broken. We are hurt by this. I personally am incredibly hurt by this because never in my life would I have ever done this had I known otherwise. And I assure you that no other member would have done that either. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The member for Niagara Falls.
Speaker, last Friday, as a result of this Prime Minister's inaction, a Nazi veteran was allowed access into this chamber. Although this person was invited by the Speaker, it is the responsibility of the government to organize and ensure the security of foreign dignitaries. Further, both the Prime Minister and this individual were present in the same reception room in West Block after the speeches. There is no way this international embarrassment is solely on the Speaker. This inept Liberal government is responsible as well. Will the Prime Minister finally take responsibility, do the right thing, and apologize to Canadians?
The Honourable Government House Leader.
Mr. Speaker, the allegation that my honourable colleague made is simply false. That did not happen. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Louis Saint Laurent. Mr. Speaker, what happened Friday is unacceptable. We gave a standing ovation to someone who shouldn't have received one. Canada's reputation has been tarnished around the world. Believe it or not, yesterday the government did something revolting by asking to erase the facts, the truth, and history. What cowardice, Mr. Speaker. To erase history is to condemn ourselves to relive it. It's typical of this cowardly government, which washes its hands of any responsibility. When will the Prime Minister rise in the House and recognize that he made a serious mistake and apologize on behalf of all Canadians to the world? Mr. Speaker, as my honourable colleague knows, when really horrible things happen in this House, in committees, as was the case with the member for St. Albert, who read extremely concerning comments into the record, it was erased. If the House had wanted to do that, why would that have been? Because nobody knew ahead of time what was happening. If they'd known, I'm sure that nobody in this House would have stood to applaud. I'm certain of that.
Mississauga Malton.
Mr. Speaker, in my riding of Mississauga Malton, I know that people are concerned about crime. And they want to know what our government is doing to make sure that people are safe. This is why I was pleased to see the House unanimously pass Bill C-48 last week, which will help ensure that violent, repeat offenders do not get bail. Can the Minister of Justice tell us more about this progress of this legislation and what the government is doing to improve the safety and community in communities across Canada? Thank you.
The Honourable Minister of Justice.
Thank you. I'd like to start by thanking my colleague from Mississauga Malton for that question and for his important advocacy. Repeat violent offenders don't belong on our streets. Everyone in this chamber agrees on that proposition. As a government, we have a job to do in keeping people safe. That's why last week, on the very first day of the House of Commons sitting this fall, we passed our bail reform legislation, our plan for keeping people safe. MPs on that day put politics aside for the safety of Canadians. I'm hoping the Senate will do the exact same and help make this bill become law. We need safe streets in this country. This bill is going to help us get there. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Courtenay Alberni.
Mr. Speaker, in British Columbia alone, more than 1,600 people have died because of toxic, unregulated drugs since the start of this year. This summer, I traveled to Portugal, where I saw that things could be different. We could have a nationwide evidence-based plan, including decriminalization, harm reduction, treatment, recovery, and prevention services. But the Liberals would rather stand by their patchwork approach that's not working. So will this government right their wrongs by immediately delivering a compassionate and coordinated plan to respond to the toxic drug crisis?
Minister of Mental Health and Addictions.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I'd like to thank my colleague from the NDP. The NDP has worked with us step by step in understanding that the toxic drug supply in this country is killing those who we love, families, communities. No one is left unharmed by this, Mr. Speaker, but that's why we've taken a comprehensive approach, province by province, working with our counterparts to make sure that we are saving lives. Decriminalization in BC was the first step to that, but we need a responsible, compassionate framework that balances public health to public safety. I continue to hope to work with him on this.
The Honourable Member for Windsor West.
Investing in clean technology is crucial to the fight against climate change. In that fight, one of Canada's leading agencies, Sustainable Development Technology Canada, has had allegations of wrongdoing with the way they've spent their funding and the way they have treated their staff. It's yet again another example of incompetency. Canadians deserve to know how the government makes decisions on spending for clean technology. The minister needs to release the full report in this House so Canadians can see the transparency they deserve and paid for. Whistleblowers stood up and risked their jobs. Will the minister do the same thing and table the full report for all of this House and for Canadians?
The Honourable Minister of Innovation.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to thank my colleague for his question. Mr. Speaker, there's no point of trying to politicize everything that's happening, Mr. Speaker. The moment that we were alerted of allegation, Mr. Speaker, we asked for third-party report to investigate and to bring back a report. I can assure the member in this House and all Canadians that we'll look at the report, we'll take all the necessary actions, Mr. Speaker. We expect the highest standards of ethics and professionalism when it comes to agencies that are funded by the Government of Canada. Canadians can be reassured that we'll take all appropriate actions.
And we have for question period today. Je pense que quelques appels